Part of what Lincoln did before he was president is that he was a poet, and he used poetry to celebrate his memories of home. Something that I think resonates deeply with our next storyteller, who grew up in an area not so different from the woods and the farms where Lincoln lived, and who also uses poetry and the written word to explore her memories of home. So please bring to the stage with your applause our third storyteller for this set, Angel Hogan.
Thank you. I'm good. Thank you all for coming out today and sitting in this bright sunshine to hear our stories and share a little bit about Lincoln. Like Dan said, Lincoln was actually a reluctant poet, but he was a great supporter of other poetry and arts, and he actually had a favorite poem, which I was able to find, and I'd like to share a few lines of that with you all today. The poem is called Mortality by William Knox, and Lincoln actually had this poem memorized, if you can believe it, and I wish I was able to do that, but I'm not. So I'm cheating because storytellers aren't supposed to have notes, but I'm cheating today. Mortality. Oh, why should the spirit of mortal be proud? Like a swift, fleeting meteor, a fast flying cloud, a flash of lightning, a break of the wave. He passeth from his life, rest in the grave. Lincoln also, when he did write, he usually would share his poetry in letters to his friends. So that's how we were able to document and see some of what he actually wrote. And he wrote a lot about his childhood home, which was very unassuming beginnings in a very rural area, which is something that I share with Lincoln. So I'd like to read a few lines from a poem that he wrote called My Childhood Home I See Again. And then after that, I'm going to share a poem that I wrote about my own childhood home. So this is Lincoln's. My childhood's home I see again and sadden with the view. And still, as memory clouds my brain, there's pleasure in it too. O memory, thou midway world, twixt earth and paradise, where things decayed and loved ones lost, in dreamy shadows rise, and freed from all that's earthly vile, seen hallowed, pure and bright, like scenes in some enchanted, all bathed in liquid light. With that in mind, I'd like to share a poem that I wrote about the farm that I grew up on. I grew up on a 17-acre horse farm in Percy, Pennsylvania, which is about an hour and a half outside the city, which isn't very far in terms of time and space, but it might as well have been another planet for what it was like for me to move from such a rural place to such an urban setting. I actually moved down to Front Street with my mom when I was 17 from this farm. So this is a poem that was written for my brothers, and it's called Selling the Farm. I dreamed again of our old farm last night. In sleep, the land is forever changing. Chestnut mares constantly running, their finely chiseled forms slick with cool sweat. I see their muscles flexing, fluid skin. I smell the strong musk of manure and sweet grain. The sky opened up, a starburst of grain. The silo shot like a rocket last night. Oats showered dried earth and the smooth skin of the mares, their shapes and colors changing. As I too begin to move, my own sweat dripping, my bare feet slapping dirt, running. The orchard shook, fruit fell from our running. Thick, pungent sumac patches bent like grain, while my feet cracked and my eyes stung with sweat. The pounding of hard hooves rattled the night. In moving through acres, I was changing, my own muscles flexing beneath my skin. The mare's thick, switching tails flick at my skin. I don't know why I continue this running. Am I also frightened by the changing sky and the explosions of glistening grain shooting forth bright tiny jets in the night? Bending their graceful necks to drink, the mare's sweat pours from their bodies, becoming streams of sweat, cascading from smooth coats and slickened skin, draining into the dried earth and the dark night. The mares begin once again their running, bodies like wet chestnuts, manes like light grain. I move along the fields, body changing, all the while running to avoid changing, the slipping away of the farm like sweat from our bodies, the sting of the grain as it pelts, welts, and sticks to our wet skin. Then I realize it's the earth that's running, a huge treadmill, spinning the farm into night. We grew up with foals whose coats changed like our mixed skin, our futures sliding apart, spreading like the sweet sweat of the horses that run only through the high grain fields of my dreams at night. Thank you all so much for listening today.
And thank you guys for coming out for this first set of stories. We're going to be here in another half hour. We're doing 2 more sets of stories at 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. They're going to be all new stories every time, so take a break, get in out of the shade, out of the sun for a minute, maybe get a drink of water, and we'll see you back here in a half an hour. Thanks for coming out.